Hey there and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever tried to take revenge on a Lovecraftian monstrosity, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and I would survive way longer than Dan in the tundra.
I'm Nico, and I hate to say it, but I wouldn't love you if you were a worm.
Well, I'm Dan, and I refute Justin's claim. I think I would survive longer.
So it begins.
Straight from the jump.
And we're here today to review 2 horror shorts. The first being The Worm, and the second being Beacon. So The Worm was directed by Andy Coyle, and it stars Aaron Scott as Sparrow. So we open in a dream sequence with a girl named Sparrow. In the dream, she's fixing a car in her garage, but she's quickly interrupted by a power outage. She starts to freak out, and her fears are confirmed when she looks down the street and sees a monstrous silhouette in the distance. The massive creature approaches and destroys her house while whispering, "Feed me." For someone who likes to be fed, we turn to Nico now. Nico, what happens next?
So we swap to the perspective of a psychiatrist who is handling Sparrow's case. Time goes by, and she doesn't get any better, making him increasingly obsessed, and he treats her before she is sent to a more isolated asylum. Eventually, he administers a controversial drug, and under its influence, Sparrow begins to tell him of an ancient being known as the Worm. This doesn't help make her any better, though, and the psychiatrist destroys the records of the session just on some CYA type shit.
Yeah, well, I know a guy who hates it when the recordings of a session get destroyed. Dan, what happens next?
How many times has that happened this year?
Oh, this year? None.
Oh, okay, good.
Thankfully. Yeah. Well, this is where things get really bad for the psychiatrist. He begins to have nightmare dreams, and they always end with him being devoured by the worm. These dreams begin to take a toll on him, and he eventually uses all of his connections to find Sparrow, since she's been transferred, and talk to her one more time. He finds her to be much healthier, and he learns that the worm is a parasitic ancient being that lives in your dreams. It won't kill you, though, because it would rather consume you until you wither away and then travel to another host before you die. The short ends with the psychiatrist saying that now that he's told you, the listener, about the worm, it will come for you next. The end.
All right. Well, let's get started. And before we go any further, I should say, this week we have a little bit of a trend going as both of these shorts are actually animated features. So with that being said, Nico, how does this one look?
I love the way this looks. The animation is super well done, and it is reminiscent of shows like Gravity Falls and Steven Universe, but a little bit choppier and grittier to match the tone. We've got a really nice color palette and visually distinct character designs. So yeah, it was a real treat visually.
Mm-hmm. Dan, where you sit with the visuals?
Yeah, I agree with Nico. I actually thought that the dream sequence, when the psychiatrist has the dream, was really cool to see. He sees Sparrow in the dream, and then she dissolves into mist, and then there's like the worm comes out and like eats him and all this stuff. It was really cool.
The first dream sequence was rad as shit too.
That was too, yeah. So it was just really cool to see that, and I liked the animation style, like Nico said as well.
Yeah. The only thing I will say is that I don't love it quite as much as Nico does, and I did notice once or twice when it came to moving some of the characters that sometimes the animation was not quite as polished as you might expect from like a big production. But again, this is an indie joint, so I think they did pretty damn well for it. And honestly, who knows what they could have done with like a really big budget. Who knows?
Totally.
So I agree with that. And Dan, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I definitely think that I love the way that dream sequence looks, because it doesn't just revolve around like characters moving so much. It's also just the general color palette, and he swims down to get up and he's upside down. And I thought that was really cool personally. So I also really dug the way it looked. Now, when it comes to sounds, guess what? I also really like the sounds, because there's a song they play at the start. It slaps.
Yeah, it does.
And then there's synths and stuff like that go on afterwards, and everyone knows I'm all about the synthesy, and it's just really, really, really good.
Oh no.
Dan, what you think?
I agree. I'm a slut for synths as well.
Yeah.
And it was dope. It was cool. I like the narration of the psychiatrist. I think he sounded good. Yeah, it was great.
Nico, sounds.
My only synth that I have is the work stat by it's either Korg or Moog. I can't remember, but it's one of them.
Smoke.
And yeah, thank you. And yeah, the soundtrack and the dialogue on this, they were really working my stat.
Nice.
Oh.
So we got to talk here a little bit. This story is mostly told via narration, via the psychiatrist. How did that make you feel? Because we've had times in the past, I'm thinking of Older Gods. Was that the movie?
Yeah, that was told narration kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. This is a much, much shorter affair. How'd you like the narration telling here?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool narrative tool. It helped play in, and we might talk about this more, but to me it helped play into the cosmic horror, the classic cosmic horror tropes, if you will.
Right.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I definitely think that because this is only like a 15-minute short film, I definitely think that the narration doesn't hang, it doesn't lag. Of course, we also get to see some cool visuals on the screen as well, which always helps. And it does really break it down to a case file, which is a super classic trope, but let's not dive into that quite yet, because Nico, do you have anything to add about the narration, or are you on the same page?
I am a big fan of it. Yeah, it really does harken back to the sort of style of writing that you would see in the more sort of like pulpy origins of the stories within the genre. But I also really liked Aaron Scott's performance as Sparrow, limited though it was. She performed the role very well. Sparrow, even though she was only on the screen for a precious few moments really compared to the length of it all, like she felt like someone who was real, and I appreciated that. So yeah, between that and the creepy voice of Das Worm, it was pretty nice.
Yeah, I wish I knew who voiced the psychiatrist. He does the vast majority of the speaking in this. It wasn't for lack of looking. Yeah, we looked. We couldn't find it, unfortunately. Now, let's talk cosmic horror, because this is cosmic horror. How does this measure up to other cosmic horrors we've seen? And dare I say, is this perhaps a more traditional take on it?
What do you mean?
Well, Call of Cthulhu, that first one, if you read it, you'll see
but don't call me late.
Woo!
Oh,
It's mostly told via essentially journal entries, and how it's not like an active voice for the most part until we get to the end where Lowell Steamboat beats Eldritch God. But no, it's more so that you hear these recollections of these increasingly concerning events that add up and culminate to this thing. And in this one, we kind of see the big bad first, but then we get the classic psychiatrist talking about it. And it's always like either a psychiatrist or some kind of researcher that always sees these things, and he himself falls victim to it. So in my opinion, I think this is a super classic cosmic horror kind of story. And honestly, I think it's pretty well done. Dan, thoughts?
I agree. I just pretty much echo everything you said. I think one of the only things that may make it even more classic tropey cosmic horror is if the psychiatrist was like a drunk or something.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, that's very
Like,
true.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's pretty much straight up classic cosmic horror, but it was really done very well. And I like that the animation aspect of it helped make it a little bit different, I guess. I mean, not just the same, even though the plot was the same, the animation aspect of it made it a little more refreshing for me.
Mm-hmm. Nico, what did you think about the cosmic horror element of this?
So I almost feel as if the casting characters in this got lucky. Like, Sparrow, it seems like she's fine. And compared to, I think, normal bread and butter cosmic horror, it would be more like, I must tell you about this mind virus, Roko's basilisk, whatever the fuck. Now we're both gonna die. Instead of in this where it's like, okay, now it's your problem and then I'm fine. So it could be one of those things that maybe could I would be happy to get a sequel of this exact monster in this exact universe. And if they were setting up for that, then bravo for what it's worth. But I do think that they perhaps got the shorter end of the stick here in terms of how cosmic horror tends to go for our protagonists.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I also want to ask the two of you the ending. You know, it is not quite, I wouldn't call it campy per se, but it's like, oh, now that you've heard the tale, it might come after you. Dan, campfire story-esque, how'd you like it?
Definitely campfire story-esque, but it also reminded me of like the like chain texts and stuff you used to get when you were like when we were in like middle school or whatever, you know?
Send this email to 20 people.
Yeah. Staying up late night on AOL, on AIM, and just get those messages or some shit. But like, I enjoyed it. Like you said, it was a little campy, but I don't know. I liked it.
I did too. And I thought that when it was revealed that he's talking directly to us and he's like telling us the story, at first you think it's because he's trying to warn us, but then he's like, nah, my bad, bro. I just had to pass it to you. And it's like, oh, I see what you've done there. I can't believe you've done this. But Nico, can you believe he's done this?
Yo, I just gotta say, what a complete fucking flex. Like, you get infected with a mind virus and you gotta spread it as is your want, and the way you do it is by forming a dope-ass horror short. Well done.
Yeah, but I feel like at that point you've played even more into the virus hand because Sparrow only told one person. He's telling millions.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of fucked up.
He fucked us even more.
Rip us, I guess.
Right. And it's even kind of posited a little bit that Sparrow might have been trying to hold it inside and then just die, because if the worm didn't get another host, I wonder what might have happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't believe no one's died. Like, I would have to assume maybe the worm just goes back to another host.
No, people died. There was the case. It was the something 5 was the original group that Sparrow was part of, and the 4 of them were the first victims. So they're not like on screen.
I don't know if that's confirmed.
I'm almost positive that it is.
No, I don't know if it's confirmed they died from the worm.
I mean,
we know they all died.
Well, I mean, fair, but like, I don't think if I was a psychiatrist, I would exactly get notes for a case file that says, yes, victims were expired due to toxic mind virus. Like, we don't necessarily know.
Oh, no. I'm just saying that, like, I took it as kind of, these were the last 5 people who had survived what? What did they survive? Because that's never actually explicitly stated.
Sure enough.
And, I mean, it's possible it could be the worm. I don't know. But they were just noted as the 5 survivors, and then they all died except for Sparrow.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what they survived. And I was thinking there might have been a prequel or something where they might have survived something else. Because you see them all.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you see them all in the picture. So I don't know. But
They'll just survive an E. coli outbreak at Chipotle.
maybe. But
Okay. All right.
what I will say.
It's a recurring thing now, isn't it, huh? All right.
So time for a what would you do? And this one's pretty simple, I think. Let's say you start having these dreams and you know that the worm is entangled and haunting you at this point. What would you do? Would you just immediately tell someone, or would you try to do something else? Like, what would you do?
So when I started getting the dreams, I would try and become just like repellent and repulsive to the worm somehow. Like, once I see that little fucking silhouette off in the distance of this weird looking thing, I'm just gonna be as annoying as I fucking can. And as I say this, I now realize that would probably make him want to kill me faster, so I'm just gonna die is what's gonna happen.
Well, if you manage to die without telling anyone, you win.
Potentially.
Maybe.
I don't think I win. I think you win.
Yeah.
All right. Dan, what's your play here?
I would visit a whole bunch of different like shamans and dream. I would become a dream warrior basically.
Oh,
Fuck
And
yeah.
I would try to like learn how to see if I can manipulate what I'm doing in my dreams so I could like fight against the worm. You know, if I can gain some amount of control of my dream, that's what I would do. Wage war against this bitch.
Yeah, I would try everything, dude. I would try like getting high. I would try ancient rituals unbeknownst to normal men. I would do anything that I could to try and combat this thing. And then last case scenario would be I would find a group of people who were aware of this or who at least were cool with it. And then I'd be like, listen, dog, I got something to tell you. And just transfer
what does it
the
mean
worm.
they're cool with it?
Like, I'm like, hey, do you mind like being haunted? No. Okay, sick. There are people out there, bro.
Who in their right mind is gonna say yes to that?
Who says they got to be in their right mind?
Fuck.
Yeah. Or maybe you pull a fucking light Yagami and go for like a criminal and tell a criminal about it. Or some
Yeah.
shit. Some dude
Or-
on death row. Or
I was going to say
Yeah.
that. Or maybe I whisper it in the ear of a guy on death row who's about to be put to death.
Damn.
Yeah, got you there, worm. So let's get on to the critical review here. So as you know, there's no Rotten Tomatoes for this, but we do have an IMDb. I'm going to move the decimal point over one space. So on a scale from 1 to 100, what do we think this has for a critic?
I hope it's high. I really hope it's high. I'm gonna guess like 80. Or excuse me, 8, I guess.
No, 80. We're
80.
keeping it consistent.
Right.
I'm going to say 88.
So not quite as high as you might have hoped. We're looking at a 75 out of 100 or a 7.5 out of 10. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Where does this rate on a scale from 1 to 100?
So I'll go first. I'm almost always a fan of when animation is used well, and it's really, really well done in this. I think it is absolutely gorgeous to look at. I think it's a really good example of the genre. I think it's got incredibly vibey sounds throughout, and it's just a really good time. I'm going to give this a 90.
I'm with you, Nico. I agree with everything you said. Animation was a lot of fun. Like I said before, it's a fairly classic cosmic horror story and everything, but the animation part was fun for me, and that brought a new life to it. I'm gonna give it I'm also going 90. Yeah.
So I don't like it quite as much as the two of you, but I still quite enjoyed it. I'm going to give it an 83. I echo what Dan said. It's a classic horror story, classic cosmic horror to be more specific. And there's not really anything I would change. I think it's a great, great watch. Now, do we recommend this amongst the three of us?
Absolutely.
Wholeheartedly.
Yep, I agree. Now, would we give this any type of award, whether it be the Golden Seal or perhaps the Diamond in the Rough?
Frankly, I would be fine with both.
I know we've asked this question before, but can an indie get a golden seal? Yeah, I guess it can.
Well, no, you can get a Golden Seal, but if you get a Golden Seal, you can't be Diamond in the Rough. Diamond in the Rough is basically like maybe if they had more money behind it or maybe if they had more oomph, they might have achieved that Golden Seal, but it's still noteworthy. So Golden Seal trumps everything.
In that case, then I would say Golden Seal for me.
So I'll cut the bullshit and I'll say that I wouldn't personally nominate it for Golden Seal. So I think the award up for debate here is Diamond in the Rough. Would we give it that?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. So Diamond in the Rough. There we go. That's right, dear listener. This gets a Diamond in the Rough.
Ching,
So
ching, 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 ching.
sleigh bells. So we definitely recommend this one. It's got the Diamond in the Rough, so you know it's even better than just a standard recommendation. And this is normally where we close it off, but not quite, because we have another movie review coming up right after this word from our sponsor.
This episode brought to you by Extreme Restraints.
Actually, I'm probably going to do like a Express VPN.
Nope,
but
nope,
for
don't
ghosts.
want to know. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fine.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Could be
even.
pretty cool. Prepare to be terrified. Prepare to be aroused. That's right. The new film directed by Stephen Bing is coming at you fast. The Texas Chainsaw Smashaker.
Hey, Jenny, I know we came out to stop that immoral orgy down by Camp Citrine Lake, But have you noticed that weird cult out to get us?
No way. All I know is that nothing bad ever happens to unattended teens. Well, matter of fact, look at all of those unattended teens over there right now.
Those unsuspecting victims don't know what's about to happen in the Texas Chainsaw Smassacre. See it now, or else we'll eat ya. Wow, what a great commercial that was, and it is surely true. So the next animated short
Whatever
horror
it
film,
is, because we don't know what we just said in this commercial, but it's true.
So the next animated short that we've got is Beacon. So this one was directed by Andrew Stadler, starring Heath Martin as the survivor and Sarah Tyndall as the crewmate on the radio. So we open with a space station exploding and a crew member managing to escape in an escape pod. He crash lands on a harsh, cold, unforgiving planet and immediately sets up an escape beacon. He is instructed to stay in his pod, but he receives a distress call from someone nearby. The transmission is interrupted by a horrible sound, so, naturally, he heads out to the source to find out what happened. Now, someone who I know definitely wouldn't find out what happened.
Absolutely the fuck not.
What does happen next?
So the man traverses this hostile planet until he reaches the source of the transmission, which all things told was pretty fucking close by.
Couple hours.
I don't know. But there he finds blood and a number of large holes. Saddened by this, he retreats back to his pod. And that night, while he sleeps, a tentacle emerges from a hole underground and scans the pod, but leaves him alone. The next day, the man sees that the rescue team will arrive soon, and so he grabs his gun and he heads back to the source of the distress signal.
Well, one guy that I know who does not get distressed by signals is Dan. Dan, why does this wrap up?
Well, when he arrives, he investigates and finds the tentacles underground. He fires numerous shots, but the tentacles don't die, and he runs towards the rescue pod. When he gets there, he finds the rescue team, but falls into a cavernous pit and is injured. In the pit, he finds a Lovecraftian monstrosity that kills the rescue team, and then kills him. The end.
All right, well, that's super nice. So how does this movie look? How does this movie look, Dan?
I thought it looked pretty cool. As we mentioned in the first half, this is also an animated joint. It was cool. It was very blue, cold looking, desolate looking, which I thought was nice. I think the color palettes and everything matched the mood and the tone of the setting of the short. I really liked it. I thought the Lovecraftian creature looked pretty cool too, with its 6 or 8 like glowing eyes.
Yeah.
Was kind of cool. Yeah, overall, I was a big fan of it.
Absolutely. I fucking loved the way that this movie looked. I thought the planet looked perfect. I thought that this was just amazing to look at. And there was so much detail. I mean, I read it in a comment, but it's super true. When he shoots the gun, his character, he's pushed back a little bit from the recoil. He slides on the ice.
That.
It's such a cool, like, little detail there. So I really liked it. I really, really liked the way this one looked. Nico?
I'm also a big fan, and I am just going to keep it at that. I loved the way this looked.
All right. Well, maybe you'll have some fresh things to say about the sound. How'd it sound to you?
It sounded fittingly desolate and almost like not haunted, but like it carried a sort of grandiosity that the visuals also displayed, and it really worked together to make just a very complete package. One thing that I will say is that, again, just as in the last one, the voice lines are delivered really well. I could really hear the grief in Heath Martin's The Survivors, please, and it all just worked really well for me.
All right. Now, Dan, what you think about the sound?
I agree with Nico. It sounded appropriately desolate. There was a lot of drone synth kind of sounds. The sound effects of the creature were pretty cool. I don't know, squishing kind of sounds, if you will.
Yeah.
as the tentacles are moving around were cool. And the dialogue, what little dialogue was, sounded great as well.
Mm-hmm. I concur with both of you. So my first question is, when he puts up his distress beacon, the guy gets a message to say, stay in the pod. Now, knowing what we know about the creature and knowing how powerful it is, and it can basically one-shot a pod, do you think he would have been safe if he'd stayed put? Because, I mean, he still would have had to go out to meet the rescue team eventually anyways. So do you think he would have been totally safe? How do you see things?
I don't know. I think he would have been, but it still would have been a risk because the creature sees him and I think gets aware of him when he goes out to check the other distress beacon or distress signal. So
Mhm.
I think if he had stayed in the pod, the creature might not be aware of him or at least his whereabouts. And then, yes, when he'd be traveling to the rescue pod, he might have got caught, but I think he would have had a better chance.
Yeah, true enough. Nico, do you think he'd have been safe, especially given that he was scanned? Or the pod was scanned?
I took it to be sort of more similar to Predator in the way he does, where like sometimes when he scans a victim and sees that they've got some sort of fucked up organs or maybe they're just like limping or whatever, they're just like not threats. And that's what I took it to be, because the way I see it, if that thing thought that he in his pod was a threat, it would have just murked him then and there.
Now, this I think plays into the next question. Do you think that the planet was known and that like hostile creatures were known to be on that planet and that's why he got the warning to stay on the pod to begin with? Because, and how I see it is this, I do think it was known because I think when that creature scanned it, he was asleep and he wasn't moving. And I think, kind of to your point, Nico, I think it was like not food. Like it scanned the
Yeah.
pod. It might have seen him inside it, but he was in a pod, a metallic object. So it was like, fuck it, not food, not a threat, not food.
This ain't no
And
McChicken.
yeah. And I think because the rescue team, I mean, they were there, they had a whole squad ready to rock, and then they like were gonna leave, and the creature like one shots them. So I feel like given the proximity of the space station to the planet, I feel like they had to have known. But Dan, do you think that the creature was known and maybe the planet in general?
Probably. I don't know for sure. I mean, of course, we're never going to know for sure, but
Right.
I would say it's likely that it was known. And there's other creatures there that I couldn't quite tell if they were. I mean, they clearly weren't as malevolent or all powerful as that one was,
Right.
but I kind of got the feeling that they were also relatively dangerous.
Yes.
But I feel like somebody somewhere probably knew the dangers of the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nico, you concur?
Yeah, I concur. I don't think this is necessarily like a Nostromo, Wayland Yutani type deal where like they knew way more than they were letting on, but I definitely think there was some sort of awareness that this is a hostile, dangerous planet, because like otherwise, why would you come down there like strapped with your fucking space rifle and shit?
Fair enough. Do you guys have a favorite scene?
The ending, man. The ending is so good. I love when we see just like his right arm just sort of slough off after the injury he received from falling. I love just the scale of this terrifying monstrosity that is about to destroy this man's entire existence. I love the way it's framed, just like the cinematography is really good in there. So definitely the ending.
Mm-hmm. Dan, you have a favorite scene?
I agree. I think, of course that's the climax and it all builds to that. And I think it delivered on that as well. It did a really good job. Yeah, the ending scene.
All right. Well, for me, even though the ending is certainly my favorite scene as well, I'm going to draw attention to another scene when he goes to check out the distress signal that he gets, the transmission when he hears the person's voice and everything. When he goes there, he just sees the scene with all the holes and he sees a corpse. At first, I thought he actually saw a corpse, but that was all in his head. There was never a corpse actually there.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a really cool shot because he sees the corpse, he throws up, and then he looks up again and there's no corpse. So I thought that was pretty cool. And all the holes are like a great foreshadowing because it's like, what caused this to happen? And there's all this blood and everything around the hole. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. Now, in terms of influences, What genre influences and maybe specific works influences do we see on this piece?
So one that I see in particular is Dead Space. I think the outfit that the guy is wearing isn't exactly like Isaac Clarke, but just like the vibes of being alone and desolate and completely abandoned in a cosmic sense up until the last few moments, in which case you're worse than abandoned, you're screwed. I think that's a big part of it, just like the color scheme. That's the big one that came to mind for me, but what about y'all?
I think Alien might be a bit of a influence, sort
Mm-hmm.
of, the space nature and everything.
Right.
I don't know if The Thing is as well. It might be. It's, cosmic horror and of course the cold
Right.
location and everything. I don't know if location is enough to call it an influence. Or if it just happened to be in the same type of place. But yeah, I'd say that. And I even thought of like, again, maybe this is a stretch, but of Star Wars, just like Hoth kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
For me, the major one that I saw was at the Mountains of Madness.
Hmm.
More so for the environment than anything else, because in that story, past anything else, just the environment is so not human. And I think, when it comes to the closest thing we see on Earth, at least, to something that's not human is like the extreme cold. Like life doesn't do well in the extreme cold in a very, very, very general sense. Like I know we got polar bears and seals in them, but like in the super extreme cold, it's just so hard for life to flourish and thrive like it does in other places. So I thought that was really cool. And also just again, Dan mentioned The Thing, and that's true as well. Like there's just a lack of humanity there. So I definitely felt that. Now, I want to go to the what would you do? And this is another pretty straightforward one. But let's say the three of us happen to crash land on a planet and we put up a distress beacon and we know that help's coming in like a day or so. What would be the best plan of action, even if we got a distress signal? What would be our plan of action, do you think?
Hollowing out your chest so that we can stay warm.
Okay, sick.
Yeah. You mean, what would our plan of action be if we were to go investigate the distress signal, or would
Well,
we?
let's say we get the distress signal and then we know that help's coming in a day. What would we do at that point? Would you think the three of us would venture out? Do you think we just sit tight? What do you think we would do
I
there?
mean, I would advocate for venturing out. I would think that if somebody else is in this kind of situation too, I think we should help them. And they were likely part of my own spaceship or my own crew or something. So a little bit of camaraderie there, maybe,
Right?
even if I don't like actually know them, but I would attempt to rescue or something.
All right. Nico, are you going to stay or are you going to take part in pod exit? Fuck it. Would you stay or would you go?
I would absolutely sit my happy ass down and take a nice little cold pod nap.
All right. I would also go because if I was stranded, I would want someone to help me. So there's certainly that. Once again, Nico shows his true colors, dear listener.
I'm gonna live.
Now, the rescue pod is coming and we're heading on our way over there and we see the tentacles. And maybe someone accidentally fires on them or something and it's too late. They're chasing us now. What would be your plan of action? What would you do in that scenario?
Run. I don't know.
Yeah?
I don't know. I would just run faster.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
I'll tell you what I wouldn't do.
Mm.
What I wouldn't do is if I see that there is a hollow opening right underneath me and there's eyes coming up, what I wouldn't fucking do is shoot the ground I'm standing on. It's a dumb fucking idea. Like, I don't know if this dude just saw Underworld and wanted to, like, shoot a circle in the floor and then so he could descend down and deal with the monstrosities. But, like, nah, fam. I'm getting the fuck onto higher ground, first of all. So that's what I would do. I would get off the ice.
Okay. Fair enough. Honestly, I feel like in that kind of scenario, you're screwed either way. So if it was the three of us, I would suggest we split in like 3 different directions because it can't get all of us at the same time. So until we can get like the attention of the rescue crew, maybe they can fly the ship over and kill it or something.
That's rather optimistic of us, but sure.
Well, I mean, because they never actually shoot it. Like,
True.
the ship gets killed before they can do anything. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting to see. Interesting to see. So I want to take it now to the critical review. And where do you guys think this ranks on IMDb?
I'm going to say like a 70.
All right, Dan.
I was going to say 74.
Nico wins again. This is a 6.6 or a 66 out of 100. I want to know what your take is. I will lead. This is my shit. I love the themes. I love the atmosphere and the environment. I really, really, really loved this. I thought it was to the point, and apparently I was reading that there might be more to do with the Beacon universe or maybe this planet or something else like that. So I'm all for it. I fucking loved it. I loved the way it looked. For me, I'm gonna put this up there. I'm gonna give this one a 90.
Wow.
Oh, I also really loved this one. I thought it was really cool. I enjoy the desolate and the sort of isolation kind of part of it, those kind of themes. I love the animation style as well and the art style. I'm gonna give this one a 90 as well.
So I like this one a little less. I still really, really loved it, but I guess just it didn't quite hit those highs. I'm gonna give this an 80. It's a really high 80 though, in like the scale of things. This is very, very good. It just it really does the job well in setting the mood. It has an impeccable series of vibes, and you love whenever there's a horror movie where people are just absolutely fucked, and that's what we get here.
So are we gonna recommend this one?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Does it get the golden seal?
I'm gonna say
I don't
no.
think so, but I think this also gets a diamond in the rough. Skirt! Or whatever.
Fair enough. So both of these films get a diamond in the rough in that scenario, which is good. So this gets the official diamond in the rough from us. Once again, it's beyond a recommend. It's a diamond in the rough. And I'm hopeful to see what comes out next. Any last words before we wrap this one up?
Animated horror is cool.
Yeah.
Indeedly do. So, if you like what you've heard, first off, definitely go check both of these out because they're both on YouTube. The Worm, you can find it on the Don't Walk Home Alone After Dark YouTube channel. It's right there. It's called The Worm Animated Horror Story. And Beacon is on Animatrocities. That's the name of that channel. And it's Beacon Animated Sci-Fi Horror Short Film. So definitely check both of those out if you're interested, like at all, in either one of these. But if you like what you've heard, please hit us up. We're on X and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook, which is, of course, Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can check everything we've done on our website, which is dotdhorror.com. Also, if you like us or don't like us, tell your friends about us. Give us a review, drop a line. It helps. It does help. So take care of one another. Never respond to Nico's distress calls because he wouldn't do the same for you.
Yeah.
And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.